Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sports Shorts Daily, presented by LeBear's Casino. Ronnie Rance with you here on this, Hump Day edition of Sports Shorts Daily, alongside Tommy Chrysan at Tremonti's Seafood and Meat and Seafood, rocking the Tremonti shirt. I am at an undisclosed location presented by the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. You can join the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame team. Get you one of these nice shirts. Go to lasportshall.com, join the team. And then, of course, we're presented by LeBear's Casino. LeBear's Casino, great place to watch any sporting event. It was awesome for the Masters. They had the pimento cheese sandwiches going on over there in the sports book on Sunday. And then, of course, whether it be Final Four, College World Series, regular season games, whatever, nothing better than be over at LeBear's watching the games inside the ESPN Bet Sportsbook. All right, TK, LSU baseball gets back on the winning side after being swept 3 games in a row over in Auburn. The Tigers knock off McNeese 10-3. It's the McNeese team had been playing pretty well. But midweek for anybody, but particularly mid-major programs, in-state programs are tough against LSU because, you're down the line pitching because you're not throwing your weekend guys versus LSU's midweek guys. Is not the same. It's not apples and oranges. I mean, apples and apples. It's apples and pears probably. So the Tigers get back on, and Jared Jones got going. Had 3 hits and had a couple walks, and a sacrifice fly or something. The guy reached base every single time up, and he was sensational. Also, Fry had a big night as well. Kind of good to see LSU bats starting to kind of get going a little bit after being shut down for 3 straight games. Big news out of Pelican Land. I'll let Tommy tell you what's going on with the New Orleans Pelicans. Some positive news for the first time in a minute over there down in New Orleans. And, of course, Nico, the quarterback from Tennessee that caused all the wave last week when he tried to shake down the Volunteers. We've got some interesting backstory. Tommy's got a story. I got a story about what's transpiring with that young man right now. But first, you watched the LSU baseball game last night. I tell you what, for a midweek game, Tommy, where the Tigers hadn't played at home in a couple weeks because last Tuesday they played at Nichols, so they'd played 7 straight games on the road. It was a little buzz for a midweek McNeese game. It was a little great weather. I think people had kind of missed being at the box for a couple weeks, and there was a good crowd there.
Yeah, well, the weather was a factor, obviously. First game of a 9-game homestand, and halfway through the SEC slate, so there was lots of things going on. McNeese had the longest winning streak in the nation coming into the game, current with 12 before last night, and Justin Hill's done a great job of that program. Hard to believe he's been there 11 years. When Lynn said that last night, it kind of went, whoa, okay. And Justin, I know Justin, but hey, they're doing great in the Southland Conference, and they pitched Johnny Holstaff last night, like you said. They're more concerned about the Southland matchups that they have, but it was good for the Tigers to get 13 hits and score some runs after not hitting and not scoring runs on the Plains last weekend, and they get the win. And then, boy, it should be just packed out there Thursday, Friday, Saturday as the Alabama Crimson Tide will be coming to town.
A couple former Tigers from McNeese. A couple former Rougarou players, rather, that were playing for McNeese. Of course, Davis Mesh was starting at third base. We had some others. I thought LSU looked a little more intense. I heard reports, Tommy, that on Monday it was not a pleasant meeting / practice for the Tigers on Monday. That that some feelings might have got hurt, which is okay. Sometimes that needs to happen. This day and age where you got 40 CEOs and 40 agents, and everybody's got their LLC and their brand, and everybody's worried about their social media and all that. It's good to see, sometimes the team, and maybe you need to rattle some heads, and I think that happened a little bit on Monday. Also, a report I found out that Michael Braswell, who's a senior, third baseman, kind of battling Reeves over there at third base, at this point, probably more defensive-minded, the better defensive option. They have better offensive options. But he was a pitcher in high school. And I was told that he went to coach and said, "Hey, I'd like to pitch. I'd like for you to consider that." I don't know if LSU's desperate at this point to try that, but it reminded me of our buddy Buzzy Heidel in 2009 when LSU had some struggles in that bullpen, particularly in the middle relief spot. And Buzzy was a backup utility guy, can play anywhere in the field. And, on this great team that ended up winning the national championship, he's like, "Hey, let me know if I can help." Obviously, Chad Jones, after missing some time in the spring for spring football, ended up, Jared, ended up, going on the mound as well. So you had two guys that really that helped their team, Jones and Heidel, who helped that 2009 national championship team that really didn't throw till the second half of the year, which is, would be a similar situation. I don't, LSU's got a plethora of talented arms. They have a lot of guys that can throw hard, but there's a lot of guys that are having struggles throwing strikes, disappointing years. Just something to watch for. I don't know if Braswell will be able to convince Jay to let him actually get on the bump, but clearly he would probably throw hard and maybe accurately. We've watched him for 2 years throw across the diamond with a pretty good arm.
Well, and now that Gavin Guidry's definitely done for the year, that's finally been announced that they tried to get past the back injury and apparently surgery's in order. It tells me that Nate Yevsky and Coach Johnson will let him throw some bullpens, or they might take a peek, just in case, you get into May or you get into a regional and you got to get a guy to eat some innings or eat some outs. I'm not going to rule it out. And, but Jay Johnson's not going to put him out there unless he thinks the guy, can get people out and get, help the team. So we'll see. That'd be interesting to follow. But, and the other thing last night when I got the lineup, for the first time, Curiel didn't lead off. He batted second, okay, and he did get on base. He did get a hit for that streak. Ronnie, I was blown away last night. I was watching a game with some friends. They talked about how, 37 games, and Curiel's been on base every game. And they asked a question about Dylan Cruz owns the record at LSU for consecutive games to reach base. And they did give you a hint that it was over 2 seasons. And I guessed 55 games, but I was wrong. It was 75 games in a row Dylan Cruz reached base. I mean, we look at what Curiel's doing this year, and then when you think 75 straight games, Cruz got on base. That's mind-boggling. The guys I was watching the game with last night, I guess 55, they went, whoa. And then Lynn gives the answer as 75. It knocked us all out of our chair.
By the way, Dylan Cruz did get on base yesterday. He was 1 for 3 with a walk in a 3-0 win for the Nationals over the Pirates. Paul Skeens got the win against Cruz. Cruz went 0 for 4 with a strikeout against Skeens and the Pirate relievers on Monday. So they went 1 for 1 against each other, 1-1 against each other as far as wins and losses. He's only hitting 120 right now. Slow start for Dylan Cruz. They're letting him hit in the 8 hole. Obviously, they're letting him hit in the 8 spot in the lineup for the Nationals. Hopefully, they're super patient and they let him, let him stay. But you gotta start trending upwards, or the dreaded AAA, send down could be happening.
Well, they sat him out over the weekend. He sat out 2 games, just kind of, the mental thing. They do that across the board in baseball, not just the big leagues. And then, and they did move him to center field, over, against the Pirates this week. So, he's too good a player not to finally get it on track, and I hope he does soon.
All right, so we move on from the LSU Tigers. They'll be playing Alabama Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Thursday and Saturday's game will be on the linear national broadcast, and Fridays will be on the stream. All of them will be on the app. Let's talk a little bit about the New Orleans Pelicans. A disastrous season. They had the fourth worst record in the NBA, which means they'll have the 4th most ping pong ball opportunities when the lottery draft order comes up in a couple weeks. But good news maybe for the Pels.
Well, Joe Dumars, who's a member of the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, he was inducted over 20 years ago. He's back at Central High School. Then he went to McNeese. When he was playing basketball at McNeese, I was working for Larry Heimel, who's been a Distinguished Service Award winner from the Hall of Fame in basketball stats. And Joe Dumars from McNeese came to Southeastern to play. And after like 5 minutes of the game, I'm like, this is the best basketball player on this floor, not even close. And Dumars, of course, he went on to win titles in Detroit. And he built a team as general manager in Detroit that won a title in 2004. Now, Joe Dumars, everything's trending. It looks like he may be named, president of basketball operations or general manager for the New Orleans Pelicans, which I think would be really good. He's been working in the NBA front office after his stint in Detroit, where he was a player. So I think this would be good because of his resume, his pedigree. He's a Louisiana guy, and that might be just what the Pelicans need to try to structure a roster to, quit having the fourth worst team in the league. So, and then their coach, Willie Green, who's still got a job, he's being rumored to get the Phoenix job because of the uncertainty in the front office with the Pelicans. So it'll be some Pelican news here. Maybe this week we learn about Joe Dumars, and then we learn what else they might do going forward. But I think getting Joe Dumars would be a good thing for the fans and a good thing for the organization. And then time will tell just how good.
Look, everybody in Louisiana is a Joe Dumars fan, right? He was sort of the blue collar leader of the bad boys and the Detroit Pistons during their great years. Isaiah Thomas was a star. Bill Laimbeer and Mahorn were the bad guys. Dennis Rodman was doing his thing. He wasn't quite the weirdo yet. You had Vinny the Microwave Johnson coming off the bench, giving you points in a burst. But Joe Dumars was sort of that unsung hero. But when you talk to Michael Jordan and you talk to others that played against those Detroit teams, they'll tell you that Joe Dumars was just as deadly as Isaiah Thomas. There was just as much of a problem. I'm curious to see, because of his old school mentality, his old school style, that toughness, that team oriented, that we not I type mentality. He kind of built that same sort of team in 2004 when Detroit won the championship, built around defense and playing, just tough, gritty basketball. Can that fly in this day and age, of individuals, and everybody's got to get their stats and shooting the threes and not playing D? Can he adapt to the modern game? Can the players adapt to his mentality? I don't know, but I'm happy that the Pelicans on paper have somebody good, it looks like, coming in that can hopefully jumpstart that franchise. I would be pretty sure that they're going to give him the keys to the Corvette and say, go get it, big fella. And maybe he can get through to Zion because nobody else can. Maybe he can relate to Zion. Maybe Zion will respect the Hall of Famer. I don't know.
Well, it is a different game today than when he had all of his successes, both as on the court and off the court. But I think if you're an NBA player and he's the GM and you Google him and you look at his resume, you might go, hey, I want to listen to this guy. It's like, the resume guys matter in professional sports. Players, front office people, other organizations, they look up to the guys who've been there, done that. And Dumars has certainly been there, done that. So we'll see if, in fact, it does happen for the Pelicans. If it does, I'll be curious to see how it unfolds.
So, obviously last week, the drama with Nico, not even going to try to say his last name for the Tennessee Volunteers. It's been interesting. In the last few years with NIL and transfer portal, players can come and go as they please. And, oftentimes we see stories like what happened, say, at Tulane, where they had a quarterback as a freshman having a sensational year, become looking like the future of the program, but yet Tulane doesn't have the resources to keep him. He jumps to Duke for millions of dollars in a multi-year deal. And it's what happens. It's nothing you can do about it. But this situation where Tennessee had which got one of the great fan bases, one of the great programs, SEC, 100+ thousand a game, all the things, right? Peyton Manning, the history. When they finish in the playoffs, they make it to the playoffs. They look like a program that's on the rise with Josh Heupel at coach, and that now they're going to start to, tap into their potential, which have been a little bit dormant the last few years. And then they've got this young quarterback who didn't play great, but hey, he was young. He was a freshman. We still won with him. We had some ups and downs, but man, the experience he gained, all right, boy, he's going to be better in year 2, better in year 3. And they're paying him. I want to say it was reported, Tommy, that they were paying him $2.3 million this past. He was scheduled to make $2.3 million this year. So now we're finding out that in the December, in between the regular season and the playoffs, his representation went to the coaching staff and said, "Hey, we want to, we want more money." So that obviously put a bad taste in everybody's mouth. Then, as wait a minute, we're getting the season's not over with. We paid you for we're paying you. Like, we could discuss this in the offseason, but right now we're trying to win a national championship. But yet he and his agent were so selfish. They're having those conversations then. And then we hear reports that he wasn't the easiest guy to deal with. He wouldn't show up all the time for his appearances. He was difficult, living up to his NIL deals and all that kind of stuff. And then here we are during spring practice, and they're trying to shake him down for estimated $4 million. Supposedly he wanted $4 million. He was making 2.3. And it got to a point where the coach, the organization, the team were just so frustrated. They said, forget it. Take it elsewhere, which has left Tennessee in a bad spot. I mean, they got 2 freshman quarterback, no experience. So clearly they're going to go in the portal and try to bring in 1 or 2 guys this summer. But now what's interesting is that he may have shot his shot and swung and missed. He was scheduled to make $2.3 million at quarterback for Tennessee. You have a good year at Tennessee this year. They have another winning season, go 9-3, 10-2 or something like that. He plays decent. He's going to make a lot more than $2.3 million next year. And instead, we're hearing that because this story was so national, his reputation is so out there that now he may not get $2.3 million from anybody else. And I mean, it's going to be hopefully a lesson for some of these players and some of these agents, and maybe give them pause potentially moving forward with the shakedown.
Well, and the thing is, he finished in the bottom half of the SEC in quarterback stats. Okay, if you finish second or third, maybe you could say, hey, how about a few more dollars, But where he was, and Tennessee knows, and then the other stuff, the off-the-field stuff, I mean, I applaud Tennessee for standing up and saying, hey, we're not going to do this. I think that'll pay off for Tennessee in the long run, although it puts them in a little bit of a pickle right now. And no, you're right. I don't think he gets $2.3 billion.
So what's the Oregon story you heard?
The Oregon head coach, Dan Lanning, a couple of, I'm going to say 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I could be slightly off, called Josh Heupel, the Tennessee coach, said, hey, man, I got to give you a heads up here. Your quarterback, Nico's dad, is shopping around the country looking for a landing spot. And this is before the disagreement at Tennessee became public. And he's giving him a heads up, like, hey, they called us saying, we'd be willing to transfer if you got the money. And I'm sure Oregon wasn't the only ones they called. So Heupel, hears this, and he probably says to somebody, look, this guy's shopping around. He don't want to be here. And that's when they said, hey, well, this team's better off without you, so we're going to move on without you, however they said it. So, these coaches are all in the same fishbowl with this NIL and this transfer portal, and these coaches are friends, and they all want each other to make a lot of money because when their coach's pay goes up, their pay goes up, nationwide. So they're helping each other out, and, because, again, the portal's a disaster, the NIL's a disaster, but we can't change it today. So you got to do the best you can do. And I think you're right. Nico, you swung and missed right now. Now, you may get a hit later in the game, but you swung and missed right now.
I was talking to some McNeese officials yesterday at the LSU McNeese game. A little Will Wade update for you. Will Wade projections around $2.5 million plus incentives is what he'll make over there at NC State. per year, and McNeese got $1 million, buyout. So basically, Will Wade's salary was $700,000 last year at McNeese. So for Will Wade and probably his staff, they McNeese got 1 full year, got a free year, basically. You know what I mean? Like, it was probably about $1 million for Will Wade and his core assistants, right? And so, basically McNeese got a free year and went to the NCAA and got money from the NCAA tournament. So ended up being a great thing. And Will Wade made sure he told NC State, hey, my contract says they get $1 million and they better have that check within 30 days. And they did. The other thing is that Will Wade has a buyout, a $3 million buyout at NC State. But after year one, the buyout gets cut in half and then goes down from there each and every year. So it's he's over at NC State, but if he outperforms NC State and in 2 or 3 years he's brought them to the tournament 3 years in a row and going on a Sweet 16, Elite 8 run, he's got the ability to jump to even bigger, or the outside small shot that Scott Woodward and the president are at LSU, maybe come back to Tiger Town. I wouldn't count on it, but that's always the hope of LSU fans. But it's never happened before that a player coach has been fired and then rehired by the team. So we'll see if it happens in Baton Rouge. But Will Wade's contract is set up for him to look around in a couple years if he does well.
Well, it's good negotiations, and it's all about the contract. And I'd be surprised if he ever ended up back at LSU. But you never say never in the crazy world of sports. But I don't see that playing out as we sit here today.
All right, we're back on the air Friday morning for more Sports Church Daily, presented by LaBear's Casino. TK, tell us about Tremonti's as we get out of here.
Well, the big thing is they're not going to run out of live crawfish. There's a lot of phone calls. A lot of people don't have them. If you call and order crawfish from Tremonti's, you can pick them up Sunday morning. They're normally not open on Sundays. They got a small window. They'll be open. Live crawfish. They will not run. If you need 80 sacks of crawfish, they'll have them for you. If they take your order, you're going to get them. And of course, the bowl of crawfish, big for the Easter weekend. And Tremonti's is rolling. They got the order sheets all over the wall in here. So pre-order now. Call, stop by, place your order, and you're going to get the crawfish. A lot of people are running out, or they have limits of what you can buy. No limits here at Tremonti's. Come get some lunch, pre-order your stuff. You can pick it up Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning, small window to pick it up, as I said. All at Tremonti's, Jefferson Highway in Baton Rouge. All right, don't forget to like and share this show, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or X. Like and share this show. That helps us. We're back Friday morning for more Sports Shorts Daily. Have a great day, everyone.